This video is for section 1.1, the scope of chemistry, and for section 1.2, chemistry and you, out of our Pearson book. By the end of the lesson, here are the three things you should be able to do. Define chemistry, identify some of the big ideas of chemistry, and identify three general reasons to study chemistry. Let's take some notes on our first learning goal. Be able to define the word chemistry. What does that word mean? Chemistry is the study of matter. In class this year, we'll look at the composition of matter. What is it made up of? And we'll look at the interaction of matter. What happens when different types of matter are mixed together? If chemistry is the study of matter, then we need to know what matter is. Matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. Well, this definition involves the word mass. So what does that mean? Mass is a measure of the amount of matter. In class this year, we'll do a lot of lab experiments where we'll use the triple beam balances to measure the mass of substances using the unit grams. We will also measure how much space substances take up. That is the volume of the substance. And we'll use equipment like beakers or graduated cylinders to measure the number of milliliters of our substances. Next, I'm going to pause the video for a minute to give you a chance to fill in this next section where you think about some examples of matter. Identify one example with each characteristic. For example, think of a substance that's a liquid when it's room temperature. Write down your answer for these 6 items, and then we'll have a quick discussion about them before continuing with this lesson video. Now let's do some notes on our second learning goal, to be able to identify some of the main ideas that we'll learn about in chemistry class this year. If there are any blank spots in this section, fill in the appropriate words in your notes. One big idea is that chemistry is a central science. There are other science classes you take in high school like physics, biology, physical science, maybe even earth science. Chemistry is central to all of those. Chemistry is used in all of those sciences because it gives the reasons for the different phenomena and principles that you study in those sciences. A second big idea is that particles called electrons cause many of the properties of matter. If certain matter is soft or very strong, or is able to melt at a particular temperature, or is able to conduct electricity, or is radioactive, or is able to react with something else to create a new product, then those properties are probably caused by the electrons. A third main idea is that chemical compounds are formed by the interaction of atoms. We'll study a lot of chemical compounds in class this year, some that you've already heard of and others that will be brand new to you. Have you sprinkled any salt on French fries lately? Salt is the compound sodium chloride, and it's formed by the interaction of sodium atoms and chlorine atoms. Did you drink any water today? Water is the compound dihydrogen monoxide, or H2O, that is formed by the interaction of hydrogen and oxygen atoms. A fourth big idea, chemicals can react when their component particles interact. We're going to study a lot of different chemical reactions in class this year. A fifth idea, particles of matter are constantly in motion, which facilitates their interactions. When particles interact, that's what creates reactions and compounds. A sixth idea, quantities of matter are measured with a unit called the mole. This measurement unit might be brand new to you because it tends to be used only in chemistry class. Key idea number 7, matter and energy are related. And key idea number 8, compounds containing the element carbon are very important. This year we'll look at 2 branches of chemistry. Inorganic chemistry, where we'll work with compounds that don't have carbon in them, and organic chemistry, where we'll study compounds that do contain carbon. We'll get to the carbon-containing compounds towards the end of the year. Next, I'm going to pause the video for you to answer these check for understanding questions. Please read the questions and write your best answer in the blank spots. And then we'll have a discussion before we get back to this lesson video. Here's our third learning goal. Be able to give reasons to study chemistry, even if you don't plan to have a career in science. Everybody needs to have a reason to be motivated to learn things in high school, especially in challenging classes like chemistry. So what can be your motivation if you don't plan to go into a career that's going to use chemistry? Well, here are 3 general reasons. Hopefully you can latch on to one of these, and that will help give you the motivation that you need to succeed in class this year. Reason number 1, knowing about chemistry will help me to understand the natural world. No doubt there are a lot of things that you've observed, and you've been curious about what causes that to happen. Why is steel a really strong metal? How does electricity work? How come electricity can pass through a copper wire, but it can't pass through plastic? Why does my body need water to survive? What does it mean to cook something? And why does the consistency of food change when it's cooked? How come ice floats on liquid water? What would happen to life on Earth if water evaporated a lot easier than it does? What's nuclear radiation? How does my television set work? What about my smartphone? How does everything in nature interact to keep me alive? There are countless things that you've observed and that you will observe, and you're going to wonder about the reasons for why those things happen. And chemistry can help you to understand that. Here's general reason number 2. Knowing about chemistry will help me prepare for a career. And I don't mean a career as a chemist or a career in science. There are many jobs where you need to know some chemistry in order to be able to do the job. Some of them are obvious, like anything in medicine, like being a doctor, a nurse, or a researcher. Others are not so obvious, and it's not until you really think about what's involved with that career that you'll be able to see where you need to have some science knowledge. Many jobs take education past high school. For jobs that require some college work, you often are required to take science in college. Some jobs don't require a lot of science to start with, but to be able to advance in that job, to make more money, or to be the boss, you'll often need to have more information than what you do at the entry level. Here is a third general reason. Knowing about chemistry can help me be a better informed citizen. There are many issues in the news that affect us as citizens of our local communities, of our state, of our nation, and even as citizens of this planet. Think of issues such as the environment, global warming, genetically modified foods, chemicals that are in our drinking water, the cost of medical care and health insurance, new technologies, pharmaceuticals, drugs, and marijuana, abortion, the rights of individuals versus collective rights. All of these topics are debated in the public and highly political, and unfortunately many people engage in that debate without being informed citizens. They don't have any science background to base their opinions on. I think about my son, who's 10 years old at the time that I record this video. He has not taken much science in school. He does not know very much chemistry. And so he's not able to have an informed opinion on the many things that are important to society. If I tried to talk about these things with my son, he's not going to understand them. They won't have any meaning for him. And unfortunately, talking to many adults is exactly the same situation. They have no understanding of chemistry or science, and so speaking to them about these issues is like talking to a 10-year-old. Learning chemistry takes a lot of effort because there's technical vocabulary and a lot of math. For a student planning to be a scientist or a doctor or a nurse, it's easy to see why they need to give the effort to learn this. But if you don't have those interests, then you need to have reasons to give the effort in class. Perhaps one of these 3 reasons can be the one that helps you. This concludes the video lesson for our first 2 sections of the book this year. There are a couple more check for understanding questions for you to answer, and then we'll discuss them.